A co-worker in my office in Bengaluru once told me that she liked me because I wasn't loud and attention-seeking like other North Indians. Yes, she used those words. Now, I smiled and said thank you, but then spent the next hour wondering why I had done that. So today, I'm going to do something deeply uncomfortable. I'm going to talk about the North South divide in India. Not the sanitized version, not the we're all one India version, but the honest one. I'm going to tell you what is actually true, what's lazy stereotype, and most importantly, why two halves of the same country turned out so differently. Because the real answer goes back over 1,000 years, and it's not what either side wants to hear. Okay, let's get into it. Stereotype 1. North Indians are loud, aggressive, and patriarchal. Partially true. But here's what no one tells you. Why? Stereotype 2. South Indians are intelligent, disciplined, but boring, conservative, and obsessed with engineering degrees. Also partially true. And again, why matters more than what? Stereotype 3. North India is poor and uneducated because North Indians are just lazy and culturally inferior. This one is lazy analysis and mostly wrong. I'll prove it. And then there's what Nikhil Kamath said on his podcast.
I have a theory for this.
Yeah.
I feel like us South Indians
Yeah.
never saw war as frequently as the North Indians did. We didn't see
Absolutely.
conflict.
I have the exact same
Yeah.
theory.
And people who don't know how long they're going to live for,
Yeah.
live
Embrace
in
the moment. Embrace the moment.
I think
Yeah.
we have to learn from them
Yeah.
to embrace the moment a bit more.
Completely.
Honestly, that's one of the most sensible things said about this topic in mainstream media in a long time. Now let's dig into whether it actually holds up. Here's the part they forget to go into detail in school. The Indo-Gangetic Plain, the heartland of North India, is one of the most invaded pieces of land in human history. The Mughals, the Afghans, Timur, who massacred Delhi in 1398 CE and left 100,000 people dead. The Marathas raiding from the south, the British from the coasts. For over a millennium, if you lived in the North Indian plains, you lived with existential uncertainty. Your village would be razed, your family taken, your harvest stolen, generation after generation after generation. What do you think that does to a culture over centuries? It creates urgency. It creates a culture that celebrates the present through feasts, weddings, and festivals. Because tomorrow is genuinely uncertain. It creates communities that are loudly expressive and alive in ways that cultures without that trauma aren't. It creates strong in-group loyalty. You protect your own because your own is all you have. It also, and this is important, entrenches patriarchy. Historians and sociologists have written for years about how societies living under repeated warfare and instability tend to become more rigid about gender norms over time. North India, especially the Indo-Gangetic Plains and frontier regions like Punjab and Rajasthan, saw generations facing invasions, raids, dynastic wars, and the very real possibility that kingdoms could collapse overnight. And during many of these conquests, women were often taken captive or absorbed into victorious armies and courts. That leaves a psychological mark on societies, even long after the original violence is gone. So protection slowly becomes control. Women get pushed further inside. Family honor becomes tied to surveillance of women's visibility and mobility. And after centuries, those habits just become the culture. That doesn't justify patriarchy. It causes enormous harm. But understanding where some of these instincts come from matters if you actually want to understand why parts of North India developed so differently from much of the South. Now let us look south. The Deccan Plateau and the Peninsular South is one of the most naturally protected regions in Asia. The Vindhya Mountains to the north, the sea on three sides, the great empires, the Cholas, the Vijayanagar kingdom were largely stable. They weren't immune to war, but they weren't fighting off foreign invasions every 50 years. The Chola dynasty lasted over 1500 years in various forms. Think about what that means: continuity, institutional memory, and cultural confidence. What does stability do to a culture over centuries? It allows long-term thinking. It allows investment in education, in art, in trade. The South had thriving maritime commerce with Southeast Asia, with Arab traders, and with Rome, long before the Mughals arrived in the North. Stability breeds institutions, which in turn breed literacy, and literacy compounds. The South's obsession with education isn't some genetic quirk. It's a cultural inheritance from centuries of relative peace and institutional investment. Relative peace. So, is Nikhil Kamath right? Broadly, yes. The thesis holds up when you look at the historical record. It's simplified, but is directionally correct. Geography shaped the region's history, and history shaped its culture. And culture shapes behavior. That chain is real. So, why is the North still relatively poor? This is the one that makes North Indians defensive and South Indians smug. And neither reaction is useful. Bihar, UP, MP, Rajasthan, these states have massive populations and relatively low per capita income. The South, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Telangana, has pulled far ahead economically. Why? First, let's address the laziness argument immediately. North Indian migrant workers built literally every major city in this country. The construction workers in Bangalore, the dhabas in Mumbai, the factories in Surat. These are not lazy people. So this argument is classist nonsense. So, what actually happened? Number one, colonial infrastructure. The British built ports in Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta. They built industry around those ports. The South had Madras. The West had Bombay. The North had Delhi, which was the administrative capital. A city of bureaucracy, but not commerce. When independence came, the South already had industrial infrastructure. The North had only government offices. Number two, the Green Revolution, which had a hidden cost. This revolution in Punjab and Haryana in the 1960s and 70s made the North agriculturally rich for a while, but it also locked those states into agrarian economies. When the rest of the country transitioned to services and manufacturing in the 90s and 2000s, the North's economy was still primarily structured around farming. And agriculture doesn't scale the way services do. Number three, brain drain compounded. The South, particularly Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, invested aggressively in regional engineering colleges, which produced a density of engineering graduates that the North just couldn't match. Those graduates built the IT economy in Bangalore and Hyderabad. That tax base funded more schools, more colleges, and compounded. The North, with lower early investment in education, saw its talented people leave for Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, and abroad. Number four, political instability. UP and Bihar have had notoriously caste-fractured politics that prioritized identity over governance for decades. Lalu Prasad's Bihar is the case study, a state with enormous human capital that was essentially run into the ground for 15 years. Tamil Nadu, whatever its political dramas, maintained consistent investment in education and social programs across governments. None of this is because North Indians are inferior. It's structural. And structures can change. Look at what's happened with industrial investment in UP in recent years. The North is not doomed. It's just delayed. Now let me challenge both sides directly. And I'm not going to be gentle about it. To the South Indians calling North India the cow belt and mocking Northerners as uneducated, you are punching down at people whose poverty is largely the product of historical and structural factors that had nothing to do with their character or intelligence. The casual contempt that shows up in comment sections and Reddit threads is classism at its worst, just disguised as regional pride. It's ugly and it's ironic. A region that is rightly and vocally sensitive about colorism somehow getting completely comfortable with poverty shaming. Please pick a lane. Also, the South Indians are smarter argument. Now, IQ and intelligence are not regionally distributed. What is regionally distributed is access to quality education. Those are completely different things. Confusing them says more about you than about anyone from UP or Bihar. Now, to the North Indians constantly making fun of South Indian complexion. This one is indefensible, and I won't spend time softening it. Skin color as an insult in a country where colorism has caused documented psychological harm, particularly to women and girls, is not banter. It's not edgy humor. It's just cruel. The fact that it's normalized in certain circles is a cultural failure. Period. And the South Indians are boring thing? You mean they don't match your specific and narrow expression of fun? Have you been to a Vishu celebration in Kerala? Have you watched a theatre full of people lose their minds at a Rajnikant film? The South doesn't do fun quietly. It does fun, but on its own terms. And somewhere along the way, North India decided that its version of a good time was the only valid one. That's not a cultural observation, but just arrogance. Here's what I actually think. India is not one country pretending to be diverse. It's genuinely many civilizations that just happen to share a passport. The North and South developed differently because their distinct geographies led them to experience different histories. That's not a problem, but that is a fact. The stereotypes exist because all stereotypes have some root in observable patterns. But they become dangerous the second you apply them to individuals, or worse, use them to justify hierarchy. The Madrasi joke isn't just inaccurate. It erases Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra and Telangana as completely distinct cultures with distinct languages, distinct histories, distinct food, and distinct everything else. The cowbelt insult isn't just rude. It writes off 400 million people, many of whom are working harder than almost anyone in this country, just to get to zero. India's actual challenge isn't North versus South. It's whether we can build a country where a kid from Sitapur in UP has the same shot at a decent life as a kid from Kormangla in Bangalore. We're nowhere near that. And we will not get there by deciding which half of the country deserves contempt and jokes. That's the video. Tell me in the comments, which part did I get wrong? I genuinely want to know. And if this made you think, please share it, especially with the person you know who'll disagree with it the most.